Just putting it out there, boys.
Hey, I'm all for it. It's Luke you got to convince. He's the hater.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Deep Drop for another episode. I'm Luke McCredden. Adam Ring is with me as always, and adds, what's the Deep Drop all about? How do we explain it to people when you see them on the street?
Well, think those trips you go away with your mates to go for a fish, and the fishing's not quite up to standard, and you just sit there and start talking absolute dribble, and you ask some of the weirdest questions. We're actually going to try and answer them.
That's great. What a great concept. I hope everyone's enjoying it so far. We're having a ball. And normally, ads, we just sort of throw straight to the first question, but we got a really special episode this time around because I got a friend of ours said, I want to ask a few questions. And I said, no, you're coming in and you're going to ask the questions yourself. And we are joined by Mr. Andrew Hart. Welcome, Harty. It's great to have you on the show.
I can't tell you how much of a privilege and an honour it is to be on the show, Luke and Ads. I've been listening to the episodes, really enjoying it. I think your synopsis of the program, Ads, is spot on. It's what you talk about around the fire or perhaps behind the bar, with a few frothies.
That's it.
And those questions that never really have an answer and a proper answer, but it's just a fantastic concept. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here, and you're right. We just give our answers, but the beauty is we've got a lot of friends on Instagram that give us their answers as well. So it's awesome to see. Anyway, let's get into it because, Harty, you are asking the questions tonight.
Yeah, good. Does anyone really only run mono line these days?
Oh, yeah, nice. Nice one.
That's
nice
my question.
One. Yeah,
Great.
good.
Mono line. Do you understand what that is? You youngsters probably don't understand what mono line is.
Yeah, it's that stuff you put on a reel that feels like a rubber band when you actually
cat
catch
gut.
it.
Cat gut.
It's a great one coming from yourself, Harty, because you are a Tasmanian through and through, and you spend all your fishing days there, even though you've spent the best part of 20 years travelling the country and international fishing. But the thing straight away that comes to my mind is the diehard snapper fishermen in Port Phillip Bay in Melbourne. Adam, I don't know, a massive percentage of those guys are using all mono.
Yeah, well, majority of them are, and there is a theory behind it. But I wonder if the theory is just to justify using mono still, or if it's actually legit.
What is the theory? Because you're absolutely right about snapper fishermen, and it's not just Port Phillip Bay. My cousin in Tasmania, he's the king snapper fisherman, and he uses mono. Troy Dicko Dixon from Wilson fishes for snapper in southeast Queensland, and he uses mono. And when I go fishing with them, I feel completely like I'm winding left-handed or something, because it's just such a different feeling when you go back to mono to braid. It's just a weird feeling, but they all do it. So what is the theory behind it? I'd be interested to know.
Well, the theory for Port Phillip Bay is you want as much hang time in the bait as possible. So generally when we're fishing, we like to get carried away with just anchoring a bait to the bottom. And in some circumstances, high tidal flow and things like that, you kind of need to. But Port Phillip Bay, where tidal flow is not crazy, it's about not getting the bait to the bottom insanely quick, where all the pickers start to pick away at it. But I don't necessarily think mono achieves that any better than a braid does. The mono sits, because it's heavier than braid and it does sink, it does keep a more even belly in the line under the water. Now, because in Port Phillip Bay, or even Western Port, or Victorian snapper fishing, we like to use 4,000 rods at once. It's an issue when braid under the water isn't sitting true, and it's just going all over the place underneath. That's where you get tangles and bits and pieces. The theory sounds good. I actually don't know how relevant it is. Like if you're just using 4 rods and they're spaced far apart and using braid, I don't actually know if you get more tangles than what you would using mono. And I'd also don't know if that's relevant to what they're doing in, say, Queensland, New South Wales, where they have an offshore fishery.
Yeah.
I know they're fishing on bommies and bits and pieces, but I don't know.
I must admit, I learnt something tonight. I thought it was a thing that was exclusive to Port Phillip Bay snapper. I didn't realise people around the country were doing the mono thing. Hardy, your cousin is the most famous person in Tasmania. What's his theory behind it?
I think he's just too tight to buy braid, but and he doesn't like change. No, but I think talking to him, I think he prefers to fight a big snapper on mono rather than on braid, because snapper are pretty violent. You know, when you hook a good one, its head shakes and it's quite a violent fight. You never really feel very comfortable with a big snapper, and particularly on braid, that is really, really, connected to you with no stretch. So I guess with mono, you get a bit more forgiveness. Mono on a softer rod, it's probably less likely going to pull the hook out of its mouth, perhaps. Dicko up in northern southeast Queensland, I'm not sure. He uses it as well when he's sort of live baiting, so he does a lot of live baiting for snapper. And look, catches big fish and wins all the comps. And I think too, it's about the fight for him. I think you wind into it, you set the hook, and once you've got him on mono, you're probably less likely to pull the hook.
Yeah.
I guess, does anyone run it, and we've spoken about snapper for a fair bit, is anyone else running it? Like, apart from, I suppose, game fishing, you've done plenty of game fishing, Hardy, 24 or 15, 37 kilo.
Yeah. So why do we use mono there? I don't know. Is it just because it's I don't know. Even swordfish fishing, we use braid line up until about the top 200 metres, which is back to mono, which I reckon just comes back to the fight. Like, just a bit of stretch is good in some situations.
And I guess mono gives you a little bit more abrasion resistance too than what, braid under tension.
Yeah.
Especially those higher end, really thin, purpose-built braids for casting. If that comes into contact with anything under load, it's over. Like, it doesn't matter
pops.
if it's the best braid ever or it's the worst braid ever. If it's that, that really slick and smooth, ultra-thin braid, it's designed for maximum cast. It's not really designed to withstand running up against, whether it be the gun or the boat or a bit of reef, or, you're deep in a snag or something like that. But it's weird though, Hardy, are you seeing down in Tassie too that even game fishermen are now starting to backspool with braid, and we've got this obsession with getting spooled, and working in the tackle shop towards the end, the last few years, everyone wants to try and fit 1,000 metres of line on a game reel. Like, when's the last time you were spooled?
I've never been spooled. And I laugh when people say that they get spooled. The closest probably I've ever come was I hooked a blue marlin once out of Southwest Rocks on 24 kilo, and it was going to the horizon. And look, the line just broke, but it potentially could have spooled me maybe. But generally speaking, a big tuna or something like that's not going to spool you. And you can always turn the boat around and chase it if you have to. So, no, I'm not sure. I think the reason that they're filling up reels with braid is because reels are getting smaller and the drags are getting better. So you can actually use lighter reels, game fishing reels as well. You can use so-called 30-pound reels and spool them up with say 500 or 600 metres of braid and then 24 kilo, and the drag is good enough to be able to do that. So I think maybe there's something in that, in just in the tackle advancement over the sort of course of time. Whereas back in the day, when you only had mono, you had to have big reels to get enough mono on it.
I do know of another type of angler that's still using mono, and rightly so. We've all got young children, and I think they're the ones that need to keep using mono for a little while.
For sure.
The tangles are endless.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
the tangles are endless.
But I suppose...
So children in the elderly, because far out, trying to watch my old man tie braid. Jesus.
Well, okay, great. I tell you what, that's a ripper question to get us started, Hardy. So does anyone run mono only? I think it's fair to say it's a big popular thing through game fishing, through snapper fishing, and through kids. But I'm not sure it's all that popular with many other applications.
No, I've got no mono really on any of my rods in the shed.
Yeah, I'd prefer not
It's
to
all
fish with
braid.
mono at all, to be honest.
Yeah. Next question, lads. Are kingfish really dirty fighters?
Wow, this is great. This is interesting, and I think this will be a source of conversation for our Instagram followers, Adam, on the Deep Drop. We get a lot of engagement from our friends on Instagram, and this will be one, I think, Andrew, that we will see a bit of, because I would say they're one of the most popular, fashionable species in the southern part of the country at the moment as we speak.
Yep. For good reason.
For great reason. Plenty of good reasons.
Yep.
The question you bring to the table, I find fascinating. Do you want to talk us through and give us your sort of thoughts on it first, Hardy?
Sure. I don't think they are dirty fighters. I think they're very good fighters and they pull a lot of line. But I don't think they're particularly dirty. But I've grown up believing, from watching Rex Hunt and whatever else from back in the day and reading the magazine articles, that if you hook a kingfish and there's structure around, you're dead. It's just going to swim straight to the structure and snag you. Now, sometimes that happens, but I hypothesise that only happens because they, luckily enough, swim in the right direction. Because a lot of other times they don't. And they fight and they pull. And I don't know, I don't think I've ever been properly reefed or strung up by a big kingfish on purpose. Not that I can ask him.
Did you ask?
I
What was that conversation
I don't think they're dirty.
Okay, I like it. Ads, what do you like? You and I love kingfish. We talk about them often. We go chasing them often. It's not a question I've really thought about, other than I've heard a lot about, and this used to bug me a lot when I used to be in a tackle store, hearing people say they've been spooled by a kingfish. And I think it's nearly impossible to get spooled by a kingfish unless you've got 15 metres of braid on your reel.
Oh, and you're not fishing with a drag.
And you've got no drag. I don't know. What do you reckon about this, Ads?
I haven't caught a lot of kingfish. Like, every kingfish I've caught has been in your presence, whether I know we've had a bit of a muck around out here in the early days, but in particular up at Narooma. And I was a little bit naive going into our first trip because I honestly just thought they were glorified Australian salmon. And so, so the first one I ever hooked on a jig was, I thought it was the biggest kingfish of all time. Turns out it was undersized. So pound for pound, I agree with you, Hardy. They pull hard, but would I say it was dirty? Not really, but I honestly haven't caught enough around any sort of reef or bommy or something they could use to their advantage to say that they are. But I will throw another spanner in the works. Is the development in current fishing tackle maybe made them a little bit easier? Drags getting more powerful, rods getting more user-friendly, and, they knock the fish over quick without putting the pressure on the angler. Do you think maybe modern tackle has taken the edge off them a little bit?
Yeah. Oh, what do you think? Like, you're a kingfish, nut. You up Montague Island there and catch kingfish.
Yeah, to look at it I think you've covered it. Both of you covered it perfectly in that there's no argument that they're strong and powerful and will make your arms hurt after a good session on kingfish, no matter big or small. But to think about it like that, you're right. I can't remember getting. I think the majority of kingfish that I've probably lost after hooking up have probably been to sharks or seals. Realistically,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that they've got it in their mind that they want to head somewhere and do you dirty. I think you're onto something there, Hardy. And actually, you and I spent some time in the beautiful north part of New Zealand a few years back catching substantially big fish. So I think it's a good to raise, because there might be listeners out there thinking, oh, wait till you hook a big one. I mean, we were catching fish, I don't know, 20 kilos or something like that. Same deal. I think we lost a few to sharks, and yes, you'd certainly lose the odd one here or there for whatever reason, but I don't think in total there was the feeling that they were quickly turn it around because it's heading for that bommy or something.
That's the reason I asked the question, because I'm sick of people particularly skippers or whatever, saying, quick, get it off the bottom, it's going to do you on the reef. And it wasn't actually kingfish that made me come up with this question. We were out catching stripy trumpeter the other day, which are a big, beautiful, magnificent eating fish, big. They probably pull harder than a snapper, I would say. And I was out with a bloke, a very experienced fisherman, and he goes, and we were making a show, and he said something about, you got to get them off the bottom quick because they'll reef you. And I'm just saying, that's bullshit. When was the last time you were actually reefed by a stripy trumpeter? It just doesn't happen. Yes, they fight hard. Kingfish fight hard. We've caught dogtooth tuna that fight extremely hard up off the Swain, not the Swains Reef, up off Cato Reef and Wreck Reef, 200 miles out to sea. And I just think the ones that got off and snapped you off ran in the right direction because others didn't. Like, it was lucky for them. I don't think they're not dirty.
So can I raise a question on top of this question then, that is any fish dirty?
So it's a good question, I reckon. Big brown trout on the fly can be dirty. I've probably been dirtied more often than not with a big brown trout on the fly than any saltwater fish. They know where the structure is and they bury themselves.
So you think that they'll once they realise they're hooked, they will go out of their way to try and mess you up and get off?
Sometimes in shallow water they know where the structure is or where home is, and where other fish that are dirty are like the coddy things that live on the barrier reef, like coral trout and those brown coddy things, of which there's 100 different species. They're dirty. They're like the lure. Mangrove jack.
Yeah, I was going to say those.
Are they dirty though?
Well, this is the thing. Do the stories actually outweigh what the fish do? Because I've heard stories of kingfish literally eating a jig and smashing their face on the bottom trying to dislodge the jig. I can't see how fish going into self-preservation mode involves smacking a face on the reef.
Who witnessed that?
But that's right, because I heard on Rex Hunt years ago, it was Southwest Rocks, that they've actually seen kingfish headbutt the rocks. So you hook them on a popper and they'll run in and headbutt the rock. And it's just like, that doesn't ever happen.
No.
And if you did, is it kind of a special kingfish? It's just sort of gone the wrong way.
It's already had a knock on the head of
and it's the same with mangrove jack. Like, I've heard stories, they're the only species that you catch that'll swim out of the snag and eat your lure on the way back into the snag rather than getting it on the way out. Like, does that ever happen? Because of all the videos I've seen of jacks, and I've never caught them, but they're in my top 5 bucket list just because of the stories. Like, are they that good?
Correct. And, well, here's one that I don't think any of us have caught, and that's the New Guinea black bass, which I grew up believing was the dirtiest, uncatchable fish that there is. Like,
break rods and...
Yeah, mangrove jack on steroids. Can't get them.
I think the theme here is that we're acknowledging that anglers are great storytellers.
I think that's right.
That's right. It's never our fault. We just met the greatest fish ever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right. And I'm not sure there's any dirty fish. I think there's fish that all fight hard. Yeah, I think tackle's probably better than it ever has been, but I still think, fish can still take line, so therefore they can run to wherever they want to run to. And I don't reckon many of them, on purpose, other than the coddy things on the reef, which know how to get home, are dirty.
Yep, I'm with you.
I'm with
you.
It out there.
I've never thought of it. It's a great question.
All right. Well, let's. I'm with you, Hardy. I'm saying that they're not dirty, and neither are the rest of the fish population. Ads, where are you sitting?
I'm going to look out specifically for a dirty fish, and trust me, you'll hear about it on this podcast when I get one.
Brilliant, love it.
I can't wait. I'll probably now hook my next kingfish, and it'll snap me off on the rocks.
Like, smash its face on the rocks.
Yeah. Damn it!
You'll never guess what happened.
Yeah. My next question to you boys. Are baitcasters, the reels, baitcasters, any good south of the Queensland border?
They are-ish.
Well, I think ads, we could almost, for the sake of trying to find an answer, put a spin on it, are they popular south of the Queensland border? And the answer would be yes. But then to go back to that question, are they any good? Well, I don't know. That's an opinion thing. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, it's a freshwater thing. I still think majority of the people that are buying bait casters in the southern states don't actually understand what they were designed for, because we did see a lot of anglers coming in buying one just because they look cool, because they're a little bit different. You know, we'd have guys that want to throw trout spinners thinking they need a bait caster, or whiting fishermen that want to use a bait caster just to bait fish with. But I think realistically, unless it's a cod or maybe sometimes an Aussie bass, yellow belly, basically any time where you've got some sort of weight in the lure that you're casting, bait casters really do come in handy, because they do cast and control weight a hell of a lot better than a spin reel. And it's just because the line's coming direct. It's following the spool direction. It doesn't have to come down the guides and over the arbor of a spin reel. That's why winding weight with a spin reel can be quite hard. Vertical jigging is another one. I'd argue to get a better technique jigging, switch to an overhead, because it controls weight better. So you look at those species like Murray cod or yellow belly. You could have a lipless crank that might be 1/4 ounce, or we're in the swim bait craze at the moment where lures can be up to 6 ounces. Try and do that with a spin rod. It's hard to cast accurately. It's hard to control the lure once it's in the water. I think that's where it comes into its own, and that's why we just don't have that many applications for it down south. But with the growing cod fishery and the bass fishery as well, that's where they've gained popularity. But if you're a bream fisherman or a trout fisherman trying to cast a 3-gram lure on a bait caster, good luck.
Well, I have seen slight interest, Adam, you might have too, being in the tackle industry, for ultralight bait cast setups for bass, but also even lighter for trout, brim, that sort of thing. Now, I don't think across the board it'll necessarily get massive momentum or legs or even take off at all, but certainly there is interest there. I don't really see, in my opinion, the major benefit of it, and I might be missing something. But certainly the biggest... the most popular reason people are getting bait casters south of this border is for Murray cod. The Queensland border is for Murray cod, and obviously anyone heading up north to chase barra, I think. What about you, Hardy? You've used sort of bits and pieces of everything in your journey. Where are you at with this?
It's interesting, because the only reason I asked it is I was looking through Facebook the other night, and there's a couple of kids down here using bait casters catching trout, and there's a lot of people now using bait casters doing that slow pitch jigging, and catching sort of smaller fish. I think you're absolutely right on lure weight. Bait casters with a decent size hard body lure, there's nothing better. You can cast them accurately and fish them beautifully. I've got a shed full of bait casters and beautiful Venom bait caster rods, and when I fish locally, I never use them. But I'm just thinking maybe I should. Maybe on things like squid they might be good. Maybe on things like bottom bashing for flathead, not too deep a water, they might be good. I don't know. It's just it was just an interesting one for me, because they're sitting there gathering dust. And I must admit, when I posed the question, I forgot about cod. because all you need is for cod fishing and barra fishing is one bait caster outfit, really. And I love that. I love that about it. You can go 4-wheel drive around Australia and catch a cod and a barra and a yellow belly all on the same one bait caster outfit. So look, I forgot about the cod, but I just wonder if maybe they're more useful than we think, even for not casting small lures.
You touched on a really interesting one which I hadn't considered, and it's squid fishing. Because squid jigs are quite heavy for what they are, especially now with the popularity of size 3 and 3.5 jigs and bits and pieces. They are awkward to cast on spin gear just because they're so heavy. And Luke, to your point on it getting popular on the lighter scene, again, the gear's getting unbelievable. There's some reels coming out of Japan and the States that are basically micro-sized feather light bait casters, but the length in rods that we're seeing in Australia now, like the average weight of a bait caster rod now is between 6'3" and 7 foot. That was unheard of even 5 years ago. They were all 5'6" to 6 foot was a long one, and they were just these heavy brute sticks that were
Diff,
just steering big barra and bits and pieces out of heavy timber. So maybe there is. Maybe it's something I haven't caught onto as well, Luke. But the gear's getting better, but that finesse baitcaster gear is horribly expensive still.
You're overthinking it, Adam. You're overthinking it. It's not necessary at all. Unless you're a cod fisherman or a barrafish.
Fair.
I don't want one. I don't want to be a part of it. Just I don't see the need. You talk about
You
maybe
look so cool, Luke. I mean, come on.
maybe they'd be good for this. Maybe they'd be good for that. Maybe so, Hardy. You'll go and give it a go. But I don't see it. So I don't see the point. I don't need it.
But the squid thing, I could see it.
There's
nothing else. I can't see
so
anything else.
I'm not sure how it works in Victoria, but the commercial calamari fishermen in Tasmania use rod and line and tinnies. That's how they catch them. And there are plenty of commercial calamari fishermen down here who use baitcasters. Just putting it out there, boys.
Hey, I'm all for it. It's Luke you got to convince. He's the hater.
Is that because they've got about 15 jigs attached to their line, or is it?
No. You got to fish finesse. You got to fish shallow. Like it's one of the great managed fisheries actually, because there's no netting, no bloody long lining, anything like that. It's fishermen versus squid, and look, they use light line. And you got to use light line to get the bites. But no, plenty of you use baitcasters. I really enjoy catching big fish on baitcasters. It's fun. But as I say, I only ever pack them when I'm going to the territory or something like that. And maybe I've got to just take them out on the boat. Maybe I've just got to take a baitcaster in the boat this weekend and see what it's like.
Yeah, it'll either make it or break it for you.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I think this would be great to hear from people on Instagram. Find the deep drop, find the tile with this question on it, and give us your thoughts, because maybe I'm overlooking something. I'm a complete. I'm anti. I think.
Can you not cast them, Luke? Is that the problem?
DC models only, Luke.
yeah, that's right. No, it's okay now. The technology's fine. It can people like me can handle them. But so there's plenty of people out there who use them for everything. So I'd love to hear. Actually, I think it'd be great, and maybe there's some squid fishing. If I see someone using a baitcaster for squid fishing, mate,
I'm going to cruise up and shake their hand.
We should go squid fishing. The three of us should go out squid fishing, only using baitcasters, and just see what happens.
Spin rods.
Let's do it. Next time you're in Melbourne, Hardy, come and hit us up, and we'll.
We're only taking baitcasters to get a bag of squid.
I'd probably just as soon use a hand line, to be honest. Anyway, that's us. That's a good way to end it. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in, and hopefully you got something out of that. Or I think maybe you've left.
I reckon
maybe
they
you've left,
did.
No, maybe they've left a bit more confused.
I got plenty out of it.
Yeah, that's
I got
right.
lots out of it.
Well, let's before we wrap it up, quick recap. We've worked out the kingfisher pussies.
Yeah.
And they're well overhyped. Yeah. We've learned that we're all squid fishing wrong because we need baitcasters.
Correct.
Yeah.
So we've learned a lot.
And we all need to ditch the braid and just use mono.
Mono.
Yeah. If we're not an infant or an elderly, then use braid.
We learned heaps, mate. Cracking.
We're doing it all wrong, boys.
It sounds that way. It sounds like I've got no idea, which is probably pretty accurate. Hardy, your questions have been brilliant. Thank you so much for bringing them to the table.
I'm not sure about the baitcaster question, to be honest. I like the other two, but the baitcaster one was...
No, we got there. You forgot about Murray. Forgot about Murray Cod, but that's okay.
How can you forget about Murray Cod, the big sacks of shit? They hit well, though. They hit a lure well. They hit it hard.
That's about it.
Well, thank you for coming in, mate, because we really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. I reckon you need to come back again sometime. Oh, unless you might not want to after this episode. But it would be great to have you around. Make sure you subscribe. It doesn't cost a thing. Find it wherever you get your podcast. Go on to Instagram, find the deep drop. Give us your thoughts. Say hello. We love hearing from you. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Adam.
Good on you guys. It's been very enjoyable.